20A. 20A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 lines to the bottom. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Says Rabbi Yochanan, Kidesh Yadav V'Raglov, the Trumas Hadeshen. So we know that in the morning, the first thing they did was remove the ashes from the previous day. That's called the Trumas Hadeshen. So let's say that happened very early in the morning. So let's say someone washed their hands, let's say already the nighttime, but close to the morning, and they washed their hands for the Trumas Hadeshen. So then Lemachar, and whatever it is, an hour later, when sunrise comes, Ein Tzarech Lekadesh, you don't have to sanctify your hands and feet. Shekvar Kidesh. Shekvar Kidesh, you already washed them. So that's the statement of Rabbi Yochanan, that washing your hands for the Trumas Hadeshen, which happened before sunrise, sometime around dawn. If you wash them there, then now that it's sunrise, you don't have to wash again. So remember, we had two opinions, Rabbi and also Rabbi Shimon. Does nighttime invalidate the previous day's washing or not? So, yeah. Rabbi said you have to wash again, and Rabbi Shimon said you don't. Those are the opinions. So now we're going to see this idea of the washing for the Trumas Hadeshen is not invalid in that day's service. Who is that according to? So, either Rebbe, if it's according to Rebbe, who says that generally the nighttime does invalidate the previous day's washing. So Ha'amar Paslalino, he says that nighttime invalidates. And so too here, once sunrise comes, you should need a new washing. So it doesn't sound like it'd be according to Rebbe. And either Rabbi Shimon, and if you go like Rabbi Shimon, he said, Ha'amar Ein Tzarech Lekadesh, Afilu Mikan Va'ad Asar Yamim. He said, as long as you're working in the temple, so you don't have to wash from now until 10 days. So why did you wash your hands originally for the Trumas Hadeshen? If you kept, assumption is you kept working and you kept having your mind on the service, so you could have kept going. There's no need to wash your hands for that service. So Amar Abaye or Ola Rebbe. Really, it's like Rebbe who says that a new washing is required with the passing of the night. However, Velina Dirabanan. So really, it's like Rebbe. And when it's the nighttime passes and you have to have a new washing, that's of rabbinic nature. And therefore, since it's of rabbinic nature, the time period between the crowing of the rooster until sunrise, they did not invalidate that amount of, so to speak, nighttime between dawn and sunrise. They did not consider that time enough to invalidate the washing. So that's all good according to Abaye. He has a novelty that according to Rebbe, it's only rabbinic. It's only rabbinic. And they said you have to have a full night. But just this period from dawn to sunrise is not enough to invalidate. That's all Abaye. Rava says no, the opposite way. The Olam, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon. Really, it's Elazar, Rabbi Shimon. Really, it's the opinion that holds that you never need a new wash. Now, yeah, the Ra, acronym, is it related? Oh, Rabbi Yochanan. Okay. Really, it's the opinion of other Rabbi Shimon. V'ra'a Rabbi Yochanan dvarav b'tchilas avoda, v'lo b'sof avoda. That which Rabbi Yochanan says, you washed your hands for the Trumas Hadeshen, that's when you're starting to work. Velo b'sof avoda, but not at the end. So it sounds like if you're just starting to work and you have to wash your hands with Trumas Hadeshin. But if it's the end of the day and you're still working, then even Rabbi Dovid Rabbi Shimon will agree that you can keep working and you don't have to re-wash your hands. Okay. Now let's bring difficulties on these opinions. So the Kohanim saw the person taking out the Trumas Hadeshin, running back. He's going back. So it sounds like they saw the person come back from the Trumas Hadeshin, from removing the ashes. And what they do, they ran over and they washed his hands from the sink. Turn the page. So you had to wash the guy's hand. So Bishlam Abaye, it's good according to Abaye, the Mokum law Kirebi. He established that statement of Rav Yochanan like Rebbe. Umod the Rebbe, the Mikros Gever Atzafar Loy Pasalina. That from the time of the crowing of the rooster, meaning dawn, until sunrise, you don't need to wash your hands. So Hamani Rebbe he. That's it. Let's see one more second. No.
Oh.
Ah, yeah, that's right. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so they saw the person coming back from the removal of the ashes, and they went and they washed their hands and their feet from the kier. Okay. So we said, according to Abai, that's very good because he established Rabbi Yochanan's statement to be like Rebbe, and Rebbe agreed that the person himself who already washed his hands doesn't need a new washing, but the other people that now saw the guy run back from the Trumas Hadeshin, and now it's already sunrise, so they have to go wash their hands. Oh, so what do you see? The nighttime passed. The other Kohanim, they knew it was the morning when they saw the Kohen come back from the Trumas Hadeshin, or I don't know if they knew it's the morning, but right after that was soon after was the morning time. So they went and they washed their hands. That's very good because the nighttime passed. The Kohanim who were not involved in the Trumas Hadeshin, removing the ashes, they have not washed their hands yet. They have to go wash their hands. But that's very good. That's only good according to Abaye, according to Rebbe. However, Elul the Rava, according to Rava, who said, the Mokum Lakar Rabbi Shimon, Rava said that Rabbi Yochanan's statement was going according to Rabbi Shimon. So it was all going according to Rabbi Shimon. Aval le Rebbe, but really according to Rebbe, in the world of Rava, Rava never said that Rebbe had this dispensation that between dawn and sunrise, you don't need to wash your hands. Really, according to Rava, Rebbe held any nighttime you have to wash your hands, even if it was from dawn until sunrise. That's still an amount of time that invalidates the washing. So according to Rebbe, so then Hamani, who is this statement like? So Rebbe, if it's like Rebbe, so even though the guy washed his hands at the Trumas Hadeshin, he has to go wash again. But it sounds like only the other Kohanim wash their hands, not the guy who just washed. So Rebbe, Paslalina. And Rabbi Shimon, and if it's the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, so he says you don't need a washing as long as you're focused on your service even for 10 days. You don't need to wash your hands. So what's this split? That the guy that did the Trumas Hadeshin did not need to wash anymore, and his brother and the Kohanim did have to wash. According to Rava, who's that going like? So Olam Rabbi Shimon. Really, it's going like Rabbi Shimon, which we asked why they washing again. A nighttime passing is not a reason to wash your hands again. The Hachab Mayaskina, what's our case that we're dealing with? The Kohani Chadati. We're talking about new Kohanim. They have never served yet. This is the beginning of their service. Oh, the beginning of your service, everyone agrees you have to wash your hands. The question is, once you've started your service and now a nighttime has passed, do you have to wash your hands again? But these new Kohanim that have not yet washed, of course, even according to Rabbi Shimon, that's a requirement. You have to wash your hands in the beginning of the service. this statement can even fit according to Rava's understanding. So at the end of the day, we have two main opinions, Rabbi and Rabbi Shimon, which hold if a nighttime passes, does that invalidate the service or not? Then we had a debate that if you washed your hands at dawn for the Truma Sedeshin, then you have to wash again for when it's sunrise. That was the Machlokas, Abai and Rava. Okay. Now we're going to have basically a number of questions regarding other things that might necessitate or might not necessitate a new washing. So, for example, Ibailahu, a question is Yitzia. Let's say you leave the temple courtyard. Does the leaving automatically necessitate a new washing when you come back or not? Meaning you could understand when you leave, but your mind is fully on the service. So you never got distracted. Your mind's always there. That's not really considered a leaving. That you're still connected. Or you say, no, once you left, then that's already considered that your mind is off the service, and therefore you need a new washing. So Yitzia Ma'ahu Shatoil B'Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim. Does leaving necessitate a new washing of the hands and feet or not? So now, Im Timtzalomar Lina Lo Pasla. If you want to tell me that Lina Lo Pasla, de Lo Parish, because if you can tell me that nighttime does not invalidate, maybe that's only because the Lo Parish, you never stopped working in the temple. Aval Yitzia, leaving the actual physical leaving of the courtyard, the Parish, where you're leaving your service. So then, asuche mesak daite, you take your mind off of the service, and therefore, when you come in, it's going to require a new washing. Odilma, or perhaps Kavan to be yado laxor. When you leave the temple courtyard, you always have an ability to come back. You're never fully gone. Lo masach, or maybe not. Maybe you did not. Your mind, since you always can come back in, your mind is always on the temple service, and you never removed your mind from the service, and therefore you would not need a new washing. It's pretty clear from the way the Gemara asked the question is that what would necessitate a new washing is the idea of called asuche mesak daite, when your mind is distracted, your mind is off of it. That would necessitate a new washing.
So if you don't move, but you're just standing there and you're losing.
That's a question. That's a question. So it's interesting when it comes to the halachas of after you've washed your hands for bread. There's different halachas of how far can you go and not necessitate a new washing. So it's called shinui makom, leaving your place. Okay. So there the Gemara uses the same expression as your mind leaves it. But there, it doesn't sound like we really care if your mind did or didn't leave it. Once you get up and you left your house, we consider it halakhically like you left your meal. So I wonder if it's the same thing over here. Now, once you left the courtyard, we view it as if you're done with the service. How much you have to be actively thinking about it? If that would be true, then even if you're doing the service and you get distracted for a little bit, it's still okay. It's not considered a real distraction, right? If you're eating food and you start talking about who knows what about the playoff games or whatever, right? So, but you're at the table, and they're still serving food. So yes, you got distracted by the baseball games, but we still see you as connected. Yeah. Tashma. So let's see if we can answer this question. Let's say the Kohen's hands and feet got washed, but then they became impure. So what's the halacha? Matbilon. He has to dunk in the mikvah. Ve'ein tzarich lekadesh, but doesn't need a new sanctification of the hands. However, yatsu, if the hands or feet left the courtyard, harei hein bikdushasa, they are still in their sanctity. They do not need a new sanctification.
Does that mean it doesn't need to say the blessing? We say
sanctification. It means you have to wash. Put your hand over your foot and you have to wash it.
Right.
Does he make a blessing every time? I don't know.
Not sanctify them again.
Sanctify just means to wash. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Right. So you're thinking like making kiddush, where you can say the blessing. Yeah. Here it's the actual the water pouring the water on. Yeah. So you see, when your hands and feet leave, you don't have to make a new sanctification. You have to rewash them. So yatsu, when they leave, harei hein, they still remain big kushasan in their holiness. So says the Gemara, no, that's not a proof. Why? Your case here is when the hands or the feet left. He poked his hands outside, he poked his feet outside. We're asking when the whole body leaves. So yatsu yadav lo kami bailan. That's not what we're asking. We're asking ki kami bailan yatsu kol gufo mai. When the entire person has left the temple courtyard, then is that considered he's left his service, and now when he comes back, he'll need a new sanctification. So this brisa doesn't answer that. This time when your feet or your hands have left, when the whole body leaves. Okay, let's try again. Tashma. Shelo rachat yadayim v'raglayim.
Oh, you make it.
Your friend walks by, put your hand out, high five, you come back in, you know? Yeah. Kicks you a soccer ball, you go kick it, come back in. I don't know, you know? Like kickboxing, yeah. So Tashma, Shelo rachat yadayim v'raglayim. Mikadesh b'klisharis b'fnim. So if a person did not wash his hands or feet, so you have to go and sanctify your hands and feet either with the kir, with the sink, or with some other sanctified vessel. Okay, inside the holy area. Kidesh b'klisharis b'chutz. Let's say you sanctified your hands outside, meaning outside the temple courtyard, with a sanctified vessel, or with a mundane vessel inside the courtyard, or shetavel b'meimara, or you dipped in literally mara is a cave, but I think here means like a pit. You dipped into a pit. The avad avodaso psula. All these cases of if you did the service afterwards, that's going to be invalid. So says the Gemara, why? Time of the kidesh b'klisharis b'chutz. That's because you used a sanctified vessel outside the temple courtyard. But ha kidesh bifnim, if you would have sanctified it inside, v'yatza, and you would have left, then avadasok shera. It's only because you washed outside that it was invalid. But if you would have washed inside and then you would have left, so then your service would be valid. Oh, so you see, leaving does not necessitate a new washing, and therefore your service will be good. Says the Gemara, no, not so fast. Why? Dilma kidesh b'klisharis b'chutz hechidami. So, what's the case of you sanctify with a vessel outside? Hechidami. Kigon the apik yadav lebar the kidesh. It's a case where you're inside, but you stuck your hands outside, and somebody washed them for you. Aval yatza. I'm skipping the parentheses. Aval yatza kol gufo tibalach. Once again, that's a case of you stuck your hands outside. That's not what we're asking. We're asking if your whole body goes outside. And therefore, you don't have a proof from this. So, Amrle Rav Zidler Rav Papa says Rav Zvid to Rav Papa. Another attempt. Tashma. Yotzachut limechitzas chomas ha'azar. A person left the walls of the courtyard. Now, there's a leaving and there's a leaving. In Lishos, he left to hang out there, to stay for a certain period of time. Tone tvila. That's going to require a tvila. He has to go to the mikvah. Im lefi shah, if he just goes not to stay for a long time, just for a few moments, get some fresh air and come back. So im lefi shah, then you need to wash your hands again. Tone kiddush yadayim v'raglayim. So what do you see? And it's explicit price of that once you've left and you come back, you have to go wash your hands.
Talking about bowel movement and urine. Why?
Not yet. That's the answer.
Oh,
that's the answer.
Sorry.
Yeah. So okay, you almost got me. It's like good on my toes. So Amar Lei, so that you can't bring a proof from there. Why? Because there it's kigon sheyotza lahasech raglov, where a person left for bowel movement, or lahatil mayim, or he left to urinate. So therefore, that's that already causes a different level of impurity. I think the urination if you touch it at all or it got on you, that's a certain level of impurity. You have to then you have to go wash your hands. But that doesn't tell us about just leaving. These cases are unique, that there's a certain level of impurity when you go to the bathroom that would require a new washing. Says the Gemara, we don't need this brisa for that. It was taught explicitly. Anybody who goes with bowel movement needs to go to the mikvah, and anybody who urinates has to wash their hands again. So we already knew that. So that's why you're right. Tani, the Hadar Mefarsh. First it said like the headline, and then it went in and it interpreted it. So first it told you the one line, the rule, and then it went and it detailed it out for you. But at the end of the day, these are specific reasons why you need a new sanctification. It doesn't tell you about just leaving without going to the bathroom. That's what we're asking. Leaving just for the sake of leaving, your whole body leaves, does that necessitate a new sanctification? Yes or no? So, this is proof number 4. Fourth attempt. Yeah, fourth attempt. Let's see. Tashma para. So, a para aduma. Rabbi Chia bar Yosef Amar. Mekadesh bikli sharetz b'pnim. So, to sanctify yourself before the sprinkling the ashes on the para aduma. So, what do? You're mekadesh bikli sharetz b'pnim. You wash your hands and feet with a sanctified vessel inside the courtyard, the yotze, and then you go, because you would sanctify the ashes. You would sprinkle the ashes outside, not inside. Rabbi Yochanan Amar afilu b'chutz. No, you can even wash your hands outside. The afilu b'kli chol, and even with a non-sanctified vessel, the afilu b'mekida shel cheres, even with a vessel of earthenware, meaning the lowest of the low. So what do you see? Even when you left outside, so the sanctification is still fine to do the service of the paraduma, to sprinkle the ashes on the person who's the contracted, who came in contact with a dead person. So, Amar of Papa, shiny para. A para is different. You can't bring a proof from paraduma. Why not? From a red heifer. Who will the kol ma'aseh b'chutz lo pasla b'yitzia? Since all of the acts of a red heifer are done outside, so you see it's much more lenient. It doesn't have the same requirements like other things have. So therefore, because you're washing health outside, all of the paraduma, everything that you have to do to sprinkle and mix the ashes and all those things that are necessary for the paraduma, that's all done. That's all done anyways outside. You can't bring a proof from there. So ihachi lamali the Mekadesh. If that's true, so then what's the necessity for the sanctification in the first place? If everything is done outside, so why do you have to sanctify at all? Says the Gemara, Ke'ein avodas panim. Even though it's a service that's done outside, but it still resembles in some shape or form the service that's done inside. Since the service that's done inside requires a sanctification, washing of the hands and the feet. So for the paraduma, before you start your process of paraduma, you also have to wash your hands. So it's trying to replicate the inner service, but at the end of the day, it's going to have different levels of invalidation, because here most of the service is done outside. According to one opinion, all of it's done outside. Even the washing can be done outside. There's no proof for us. So the question remains unanswered. If you go outside with your full body or not, remains unanswered. Next question. Ibailahu Tuma. The Kohen becomes impure. Mahu shetoril lekidush idayim reglaim. So he sanctified his hands and his feet, and then he became impure. Do you need a new sanctification of hands and feet or no? So now, im tim salom, if you're going to say yitzia lo pasla, if you'll tell me that exiting does not require a new sanctification, the reason is why the gavra chazi. Because at the end of the day, the person himself is still fit. He washes hands and his feet. He's fine. It's just that the area that he left a certain area, but he himself is fine. If that would be the reasoning, so then but here when he became impure, so there's more of a reason to assume that his mind is off of the service. We view it as if he's left the service, because he's now impure. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, Odilma, Kaven the Hadar Chazi, since he's going to return after he becomes impure, so then he still should be fit. Kaven the Hadar Chazi, Dakle Velo Mesak Daite. Since he's going to return, even in a state of impurity, he still is going to be precise about keeping his mind on the service, and therefore we shouldn't assume that that he's left his service, even though he's impure, and therefore he would not need a new sanctification. Let's see if we can bring any proofs. Tashma Kiddush Benitmu Matbilin Vein Tzarech L'Kaddish. If a person got his hands and feet sanctified, and then they became impure, he goes to the mikvah Vein Tzarech L'Kaddish, and then they do not need a new sanctification. Sounds like a beautiful proof. Says the Gemara, no. Same as before, really. Nitmu Yadav Lo Mi Bailan Kimi Bailan Nitma Kol Gufo. We're not talking about where your hands became impure. We're talking about where your body became impure. Your whole body became impure. That's our question. In this case, the case of your hands becoming impure. You can't bring a proof from there. Says the Gemara, Kol Gufo Tepuk Lei Kaven de Bai Lim Kaven de Bai Lim Avid Kaven de Bai Lim Avid Harav Shemesh Hasluche Mesak Daite. Says the Gemara, what's the case? You became impure, so you went to the mikvah. So you have to wait till nighttime now. You're called a Tvul Yom. You gotta wait till nighttime. So at 10 a.m. you got impure. Now you're gonna wait till 6 p.m. So for sure that's considered like you left your service. You're not sitting around there waiting for 8 hours just thinking about the service. That's for sure considered a leaving of the service. You would have a new sanctification. So what's your question? Says the Gemara, no. The question is, the case is that right after Mincha, before Mariv, that's when you got impure. So there's very little time now before sunset. So now, does that impurity, does that necessitate, if you want to go now and keep serving in the temple, does that necessitate a new washing of your hands and feet, or no? So of course, if you became impure and you have a long day until sunset, then for sure. But when you have not such a long time, when you're close, that's our question. Says the Gemara again. Let's try to prove from Paraduma. Tashma Para Rabbi Yosef Amar Mekadesh B'Klisharis Bifnim. You sanctify your hands with a sanctified vessel inside the Yotze, and then you go out and do the service. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Afilu B'Chutz Afilu B'Kli Chol Afilu B'Mekidesh L'Cheres. Rabbi Yochanan says even if that you can wash your hands outside, even with a mundane vessel, even with an earthenware vessel, you can wash it all outside. So says the Gemara V'Hapara. The tamuye matminanle, but a paraduma, the person that does the sanctification, he himself becomes impure. How do the Tanat? How do I know? Mitamin hayu akoin hasorif hasapara. They would impurify the kohen that would burn the ashes of the paraduma, umat bilin also, and they would toivel him. So why would they do that? Why would they on purpose cause the kohen to become impure? To lahotzi miliban shel tzedukim, the group around in the second temple that did not believe in the oral Torah. So we did many things to validate the oral Torah. So one of them was that they would invalidate the Kohen. Why? Because the Tzedukim would say, Shayu Omrim, that b'mu'urvei shemesh, Shahayu Omrim, b'mu'urvei shemesh, haisa nasis, they would say that basically you have to be fully pure to do the sprinkling of the ashes. Somebody who's impure and has to wait until nighttime, the Tzedukim would invalidate such a service. So what would we do? We would invalidate the Kohen, and then he would go to the mikvah, and then he would have the whole day to wait until sunset, and yet he would still be valid in doing the service of the paraduma. Okay, so what does that have to do with us? So even the Kohen who was invalid, what do you see? He continued on with the service of the paraduma. So shmamina lo paslaba tuma. You see that the impurity did not invalidate the service. So you see impurity, you can keep going. You don't have to go wash your hands again. So says the Gemara, no, you can't bring a proof from paraduma. Why? Shiny para hol the tvul yom lo pasulba. Since by paraduma, it's much more lenient. because a Tvul Yom, someone who went to the mikvah and is waiting for sunset, is somebody who is still valid to do the service of the paraduma, as opposed to the rest of the temple service. So you see, it's more lenient. So you can't bring me a proof from a more lenient case to a more stringent case of regular service in the temple. Our question is regular service in the temple for a guy where the Kohen got his hands and feet washed, and then he became impure. So now does he need a new sanctification of his hands and his feet before he continues the service? But you can't bring me a proof from paraduma. If that's true, Lamali de Makadish, same as before. If it's really so different to the service of the paraduma, why do you have to have a sanctification at all? Says the Gemara, because we try to pattern it somewhat after the regular services. Since by the regular services you wash your hands, so too by the service of the paraduma you also wash your hands. It's like one time I was at a dinner of my yeshiva in Israel. It was like 20 years there. They were giving thanks to Hashem for 20 years of being around. So they started off reciting the psalm about Mizmor L'Soda, we say in davening, thanking Hashem. So it's similar. Like every Shemana Esrei, what do you start off with? Thanking Hashem. Every dive is about thanking Hashem. So now you're making an event. You start off with thanking Hashem. So paraduma is also, you're starting off doing some kind of a service. You start off with the same way that you do the rest of the services, by sanctifying your hands. Yeah. Okay. So now this is now the third question. The other one also went unanswered. So Ibailu, third question. Mahu lekadesh yadav raglav biki. What? The first question was leaving. Does leaving invalidate? That we had 4 attempted proofs. Second question was does tuma, does impurity invalidate? And that we had 2 attempted proofs. And now the third question is mahu lekadesh yadav raglav bikiyur. Can you wash your hands and feet in the sink? Like, you wash the babies in the sink back in the day. So can you, not from the sink, but in the sink? So says the Gemara, no. Mimenu amarachman avlo b'socho. It says in the Torah, from it, not in it. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, odilma afilu b'socho. What it means is, not only from it, even in it, you could do. So if you could do from it, for sure you could do in it. So Amra, I don't know how they would stick their feet, be a little bit acrobat, I guess. Stick your feet inside the, how do you reach low enough for you? Stepping stool? I don't know. Okay, so Amar of Nachman by Yitzchak Tashma, let's try to bring a proof. O shetavel b'meimaro. So a person, the Kohen, they went into the pit and they dunked themselves in the mikveh in the pit. The Avad Avodaso, and then he went and he did the service. That's going to be invalid because you have to wash your hands again. So right, this we had earlier. That you have to wash your hands if you became, you have to wash your hands. Just go into the, we said that going into a pit and going to the mikvah is not enough to allow you back in to do the service. You have to actually wash your hands, wash your feet. So it says the Gemara, okay, going to the pit is not going to be good, but ha-mekiyur, but what about going into the sink? Dumia demei mara v'avad avoda kshera. We chose the case of a pit to show you, going to a pit is not going to be good. But maybe going into the sink itself, that's going to be fine. So maybe that's a good proof. It says we're in love. No. So if no, then why'd you choose a pit? Choose the bigger novelty. Tell me that going into the sink is not going to be good. Why'd you teach me going to the pit is not good? The sink will be a much bigger novelty because from the sink is good. In the sink is not good. Why did it teach a pit? Lo meimara itzrichale shalo tomar. You shouldn't say kol gufo tovel behem yadav v'ragav kol shekain. It taught you the case of a pit to teach you that don't think that dunking your whole body would work instead of washing the hands and your feet. You could have heard, if I have to wash my hands and my feet, for sure if I jump in with my whole body, that's for sure going to work. Instead of no, don't think that. You have to wash your hands and your feet, not your whole body. It's a special requirement to wash hands and feet, and not your whole body. So therefore, we taught that the pit is going to be invalid, so that you shouldn't think that you can get away with washing your whole body. No, specific requirement to wash your hands and wash your feet. Amr Bechir Bar Yosef, Mekir Nifsalin Lematirin Kimatirin and Le'evarim Ke'evarim. Okay, so what's this question? Is that? Oh, we have time. I think this is new for me. Okay, so what's this question?
Becomes invalid. The method in the same manner that the method become invalid. The method refers to those parts of the sacrifice which, when offered on the altar, the remainder of the offering to eat in that bowl, to eat and offer that. These are the blood in the case of an animal offering that comes from the.
So it's asking, is the water of the kir nifsalin if what? If it stays overnight? Okay. Okay, so Amar Mechir Bar Yosef, make kir nifsalin does the water of the mekir, does that become invalid? The matirin kimatirin and le'evarim ke'evarim. So how do it become invalid if you don't? We saw that they used to dunk the whole sink every night, right, to have that water be pure. So. Yeah. We're gonna stop here. Yes.
Yeah.